My name is Sarah Miller, and I swear I'm not crazy, though if you'd watched me tonight, standing barefoot and dripping on the cold bathroom tiles while arguing with my dog about personal boundaries, you'd probably think otherwise. People always say living alone is peaceful, freeing, the silence is yours, the space is yours, the mess is yours. And they're right. But nobody warns you how deafening your own thoughts can get when there's nobody else to share the noise. For years, I've balanced my solitude with my work and my routines. I drink my morning coffee alone at the window. I laugh at shows alone. On my couch. I drift off to sleep alone to the hum of the city outside my cracked window. And honestly, I liked it that way. But then there's Max. Max, my 4-year-old Labrador, is the only living thing that's ever been close enough to know how breakable I can be behind locked doors. He's seen the version of me that never makes it to my carefully filtered Instagram stories, the one that sobs at 3 a.m. with mascara crusted on my cheeks, the one that eats dinner straight out of the pan on the kitchen floor because the chair felt too far away. Tonight, he did something different. He broke the last boundary I thought I still owned. My bathroom door to IT started the way most of my evenings do, a long day, a missed lunch, a head full of anxious loops repeating the same unfinished tasks. By 9 o'clock, I'd answered the final work email with trembling hands and slammed my laptop shut so hard I startled Max awake on his dog bed. He lifted his head, one floppy ear inside out, watching me with those endless brown eyes that always made me feel guilty, like he knew too much. Sorry, bud, I muttered. My voice cracked more than I meant it to. He patted over, tail wagging gently, bumping his big head into my knee. It made me smile, it always does. It's impossible not to soften when Max decides you need him. Okay, enough adulting. I'm taking a shower. You stay here, okay? I told him, pointing at his bed like a teacher giving instructions to a toddler. Max wagged harder, then flopped onto his back, tongue lolling out. I laughed despite myself. I peeled off my work clothes right there in the living room, another perk of living alone, no witnesses to my chaos, then grabbed my fluffy towel and tiptoed toward the bathroom, humming tunelessly under my breath. I didn't hear the soft pat of his paws behind me. The bathroom light flickered to life. I closed the door halfway, not locked, because it's never been necessary. Who would barge in on me? The ghost of my bad decisions. I turned the water on hot, stepping under the stream that hissed over my tired shoulders. For a moment, it felt like washing off everything, my boss's passive-aggressive emails, my mother's voicemails I still hadn't answered, my own voice telling me I wasn't doing enough. Steam rose. I closed my eyes, then, click, click, click. Pause on tile. I froze mid-shampoo. No way of peeking out through the blurred curtain. I almost slipped on the wet floor when I saw him, Max, half inside the bathroom, nose sniffing the steam, eyes locked on me like he'd just discovered my top-secret hiding spot. Max. Out. I called, but my voice was more amusement than authority. I'm useless at pretending to be the boss of him. Always have been. He ignored me, of course. He walked fully in, circled twice, his nails clicking on the tiles, then sat right there, facing the tub. Watching me, I pulled the curtain back enough to scowl at him. Suds dripped down my nose. Privacy, genius. I'm naked. This is weird. Max just wagged his tail once, slowly, and tilted his head. His stare didn't waver. I half expected him to speak. Don't mind me, human, just making sure you don't drown. I sighed dramatically and ducked back under the water. I finished scrubbing myself faster than ever, because let me tell you, it is deeply unnerving to know your Labrador is assessing your every move from 2 feet away. When I turned the water off, I peeked again, still there. Sitting. Staring. You're a creep, I announced, stepping out and grabbing my towel. Water dripped off my hair, pooling around his big paws. He didn't flinch. I wrapped myself up and knelt beside him, still dripping. He leaned in immediately, nose cold against my collarbone, exhaling a warm puff of dog breath that smelled vaguely of his dinner. Okay, Sherlock. What is it? Bathroom ghosts? Spider invasion? Or are you just lonely? He didn't answer, obviously. But his eyes did. He watched me like he was guarding me from something I couldn't see. Maybe from myself. I Patted his head, the old familiar guilt tightening in my throat. I'd been gone a lot lately. Late nights, rushed mornings, distracted moments when I pretended not to see the leash in his mouth because the emails felt more urgent than his wagging tail. You deserved better tonight, huh? I whispered into his fur, his tail thumped once. On the damp tiles. Forgiven. Always forgiven. I tugged him gently by the collar and led him back into the hallway. He resisted, bracing his paws dramatically like a toddler refusing bedtime. No, buddy, the bathroom show is over, I chuckled. But my heart pinched a little. He'd sat there the whole time, staring. Watching over me like he knew tonight was one of those nights. Back in my room, I dropped the towel for fresh pajamas. Max turned politely, giving me pretend privacy. Like that made any sense after watching me shower. When I crawled under the covers, he circled his spot at the foot of my bed 3 times before curling up. He rested his chin on my ankle. His soft snore filled the quiet, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel alone. I lay awake longer than I meant to, listening to the city hum outside, feeling the warmth of his body pressed against my feet. In the dark, I wondered, when did he decide I couldn't be trusted to shower by myself? When did I teach him to guard the door I thought I didn't need anyone to guard, and what does it say about me that I was secretly glad he did? I've always known Max was smart. Not the show-off kind of smart. He never learned fancy tricks or balanced biscuits on his nose like the Instagram dogs I follow at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. But he knows other things. Private things. Things I wish he didn't sometimes, like how my footsteps sound different when I'm fighting back tears. Or how the way I shut a cabinet door too hard means I'm about to lose the fight altogether. Or how I reach for him without a word when I need to be reminded I'm still here, still alive, still worth guarding. But last night, that bathroom incident felt different. He didn't just wait outside the door like he usually does. He came in, sat down, and stared at me like I might dissolve down the drain if he blinked. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was bored. Maybe the sound of the water made him curious. Maybe he thought the shampoo bottle was a squeaky toy in disguise. But this morning, as I stood in the kitchen waiting for my burnt toast to pop up, I felt those eyes again. I turned, and there he was, sitting silently in the doorway. Watching Max, I sighed, fighting a tired smile. Don't you have toys to destroy or something? His tail thumped once against the floorboards, but he didn't move. Okay, Inspector Clouseau, come here. He trotted over and leaned all 70 pounds of dog against my knees. I scratched behind his ear automatically, my other hand fumbling for the peanut butter jar. It clattered to the counter. He didn't flinch. You're acting weird, you know that? Even for you. I spread too much peanut butter on the toast and bit into it anyway, ignoring the sticky clump in my throat. He watched every bite like it was the most riveting show he'd ever seen. After breakfast, I pulled on my coat, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. I glanced at Max's leash where it always hangs, and guilt jabbed my ribs like a finger. Fine, buddy. Walk first, work later. His tail spun like a propeller outside, the cold nipped at my cheeks, but Max barely seemed to notice. He stayed close, his shoulder brushing my leg every few steps. If I paused, he paused. If I sighed, and I did, more than once, he looked up at me with that same two-eyes gaze. It should have annoyed me, how much he hovered. But it didn't. Not really. Not when the truth was, deep down, a meaner voice kept whispering, what? If he's right to worry, I'd been tired lately, bone tired, not just work tired. The kind of tired that a nap can't fix. The kind that knots behind your ribs and hums there, reminding you that you're a little too breakable for your own good. Halfway down Pine Street, I stopped at the corner, tugging Max's leash to keep him from sniffing at a suspicious-looking bush. He pressed against my calf, warm and solid. You're clingy today, I murmured, not expecting an answer. A passing jogger smiled at us, earbuds jammed in, oblivious to how my heart rattled in my chest every time Max leaned into me like this. I used to be good at pretending I didn't need anyone. I still am, mostly. Except when Max decides otherwise. Back home, he watched me work from the doorway, dozing off, but never leaving. Every time my chair squeaked or I muttered at an email, His head popped up like he'd been shocked awake. By the time dusk crawled through my blinds, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined it all. He was just being a dog. A clingy, stubborn, slightly too big dog who loved me more than I deserved. Then I stood up to shower again. I didn't mean to test him. I really didn't, but I paused in the hallway, met his sleepy brown eyes, and said, in my best fake serious voice, "Stay out here. Got it?" He perked up, tail wagging. "I'm serious, Max. I need, 5 minutes of alone time." He barked once. It sounded suspiciously like laughter. I shut the bathroom door completely this time, even turned the little lock that barely worked. I turned the water on hotter than usual, telling myself I was being silly, that I didn't actually feel safer when he watched me shower like a four-legged bodyguard. Steam fogged the mirror. The pipes groaned. For a few seconds, I almost believed I'd won. That he was lying patiently on the hallway rug, waiting for me like a well-trained dog in a storybook. Then, thud, something heavy pressed against the door. I held my breath. Another thud, then a frustrated grunt, the unmistakable sound of a determined Labrador shoulder-checking a flimsy bathroom door. "Max." "No." I called, shampoo halfway down my forehead. "Scrabble, scrabble." His claws scraped the doorframe. I half expected the whole thing to burst open like a cheap horror movie scene. I rinsed my hair as fast as I could, cursing under my breath. He didn't bark, not once. Just pressed and pawed and sighed dramatically on the other side. When I turned the water off and cracked the door, he practically fell inside, ears back, tail thumping frantically. He circled me once, sniffed the damp air, then sat and stared. "You absolute maniac," I laughed, but my voice shook. "You just can't help yourself, can you?" He rested his chin on my wet knee as I sat on the closed toilet lid, wrapping my towel tighter around my shoulders. Drops of water dripped from my hair onto his fur, but he didn't budge. It hit me then. He wasn't just watching. He was waiting. Waiting for whatever part of me he thought might fall apart if he didn't keep it tethered. I buried my face in his neck, the smell of wet dog and old carpet filling my nose. I felt ridiculous. Half naked, half crying, half laughing. "I'm okay, you know," I whispered into his fur. "I promise." His tail wagged once. A lie detector disguised as a Labrador. When I stood to dress, he followed me back to the bedroom. Keeping one paw on the threshold at all times like he was marking territory. "This human is under my watch." I texted my best friend later, half joking, half hoping for an explanation. "Me, you ever heard of a dog turning into a bathroom stalker, Grace?" "No." "Why, me, Max won't leave me alone. He literally tries to break down the door if I shower without him. Grace." "Maybe he thinks you'll drown." Me, very funny. Grace, or maybe he knows something you don't. Dogs feel stuff, you know. Me.
Sheesh.
But I didn't roll my eyes. Not really, because somewhere deep in my chest, where the fear lives when I wake up at 3 a.m. and can't breathe, a tiny part of me wondered, what if he does know something? What if he knows how close I come, sometimes, to vanishing under the weight of my own thoughts? What if this is his way of dragging me back to the surface, one stare at a time? I fell asleep that night with my bathroom door open. Max lay beside my bed, head resting on my pillow until I drifted off. And somewhere in the fog of half-sleep, I thought I heard him sigh, the sound of a tired guardian who would not, under any circumstances, let me break alone. It's strange how easy it is to keep secrets from people, but impossible to keep them from a dog. People believe what you show them, the smile, the polite laugh, the casual "I'm fine, just tired." But a dog? He knows when you're lying, not because he understands words, but because he feels the tremor in your hands when you scratch his ears, or the way your shoulders curl forward when you think nobody's looking. And Max had been watching me more than usual this week. He followed me from room to room like he was stitching me together with invisible thread. If I sat, he lay against my leg. If I stood, he stood. If I shut a door, he waited on the other side, except, of course, for the bathroom. He'd decided. That door no longer counted. I kept telling myself I was fine. I said it out loud sometimes, practicing the syllables like an incantation that would make it true. I worked. I answered calls. I even laughed on Zoom when someone cracked a terrible joke about quarterly reports. From the outside, I looked like every other overworked woman in a small apartment with too many coffee mugs and a dog hair problem, but when the sun dipped behind the apartment block across the street, the shadows got too heavy to carry alone. It was Friday night when I cracked. It wasn't dramatic. There was no single awful text or gutting phone call. It was smaller than that, a notification that my rent would go up again next month, an unopened message from my mother that just said call me, a missed call from my boss at 8 p.m. It added up the way raindrops fill a bucket, you never notice the leak until it spills over. I was sitting on the bathroom floor because it felt safe there, the smallness of the room, the hum of the fan, the cool tile under my thighs. Max was lying next to the tub, one paw pressed against my foot like an anchor. He hadn't tried to push the door tonight. I'd left it open for him. I pulled my knees to my chest, burying my face in my arms. It wasn't the first time I'd cried here, it was just the first time I hadn't pretended to myself that I was just having a moment. Max lifted his head, his breath warm against my bare ankle. He shifted closer until his side pressed against my leg. I didn't look up, I couldn't. The tears weren't loud, just steady, soaking into the sleeves of my old college hoodie. I heard him sigh. Not the annoyed sigh he gives when I deny him a bite of my sandwich. This one was deeper, older somehow. Like he was telling me, go ahead. I can wait. I couldn't remember the last time I'd let someone see me like this. Maybe that was the worst part, the realization that the only soul I trusted with my mess was covered in fur and couldn't speak back. The fan rattled above us. My sobs hiccuped and stuttered, embarrassingly loud in the tiny space. Max nudged my elbow with his big head, forcing me to lift it just enough for him to worm it under. He settled his chin on my knee, staring up at me with that unblinking Labrador certainty. You don't have to watch me fall apart, I whispered, voice raw. His eyes said otherwise. I laughed, choked and watery. You don't get paid enough for this job, you know. Another sigh. His tail thumped once, a soft, reassuring I'm here. Keep going to so I did. I told him everything, or maybe I just said it out loud for myself. How tired I was of pretending I had it all together. How the emails, the bills, the loneliness, the fear of never being enough pressed down on my chest until I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. How sometimes, and this was the worst part to admit, sometimes, at night, I thought about what it would be like if I just stopped. If I could close my eyes and not open them again. Not in a dramatic, tragic way. Just quiet. Max didn't flinch at that confession. He didn't judge. He didn't pull away yet, he just stared. Soft and steady and unafraid. I don't know how long we stayed there. Long enough for my knees to ache and my fingers to go numb. Long enough for the storm in my head to wear itself out, leaving only the tired, shaky truth behind. When I finally lifted my face, I pressed my forehead to his. He smelled like the park and sun-warmed fur and the faint doggy smell that never quite washes out, no matter how many baths you give him. Thank you, I breathed. It felt too small, but it was all I had. His eyes closed halfway, as if to say, shh. You don't owe me words. Eventually, my legs protested. I stood slowly, knees popping, and he rose with me. He didn't leave my side as I washed my blotchy face at the sink. He watched as I brushed my teeth, his reflection behind me in the mirror, patient, loyal, mine back in the bedroom. I tried to shoo him to his bed at the foot of mine. He ignored me completely, climbing up and flopping down across my pillow, claiming it like a king laying siege. Seriously? I groaned, but the warmth in my voice betrayed me. I didn't push him off. Instead, I crawled in beside him, curling my arm around his big rib cage. He pressed his forehead to mine again, a soft huff of breath warming my cheek. I in the dark, with his heartbeat under my palm, I promised myself something I hadn't dared to promise in a long time. Tomorrow, I'll try again. Not for me. For him. Outside, the city hummed its restless lullaby. Inside, my room felt less like a prison and more like a den. Safe. Guarded. Max stayed awake longer than I did that night. I knew because every time I cracked my eyes open, just to be sure he was real, I found him watching me, the same way he'd watched me on the bathroom floor. Not blinking. Not judging. Just their silent proof that sometimes, the right kind of silence says more than any word ever could. I used to believe breakdowns only happened in the dark corners of the mind. I thought if I kept my thoughts neat and my smile fixed, my body would never dare to betray me. It turns out, I was wrong. It started with a scratch in my throat that wouldn't leave. Nothing dramatic, just a tickle I blamed on too many late nights and too few vitamins. But by Friday afternoon, my head felt stuffed with wet cotton, and every time I swallowed, it burned. I worked anyway. I always do. I promised myself I'd sleep in tomorrow, maybe drink tea in bed while Max snored at my feet. A perfect Saturday fantasy I never got to keep up. By midnight, my skin was hot to the touch. I stumbled to the bathroom to check my face in the mirror, half convinced I'd see a stranger looking back. Max shadowed me as always, paused silent on the floorboards, breath warm on my calf when I paused to grip the hallway wall. Go back to bed, buddy, I croaked. My voice startled even me, yet he didn't budge. In the bathroom, I sat on the closed toilet lid, too dizzy to stand. I pressed my palms to my temples, fighting to steady my breath. The mirror across from me was a fogged mess. The fan had given up weeks ago. I could barely see my reflection, but I didn't need to. I felt like death. Max nudged my knee with his big head, a question in his eyes. I'm fine, I rasped. The lie tasted sour. He pressed closer, a solid wall of fur and warmth. He didn't sit this time, he stood guard, tense, as if waiting for an enemy. I couldn't see. A wave of nausea rolled through me so hard I bent forward, gagging. Panic bloomed in my chest, clawing up my throat like a fist closing around my windpipe. Not now. Not alone. Not like this. I shoved to my feet and stumbled to the sink. Cold water, that's what I needed. Something real. Something to hold me here. My knees buckled. My hand slapped the faucet, water splashing everywhere, and then I felt it, Max's fur against my hip, his shoulder bracing me upright when my own legs wouldn't. Good boy, I whispered. My vision swam. My heart thundered so loud I could barely hear my own voice. Stay with me, okay? He whined low in his throat, a sound I'd only heard once before, when a car backfired too close to us at the park. It wasn't fear. It was a warning. I'm ready if you need me. I sank back down to the floor. The cold tiles bit through my pajama pants, but it was better than the spinning inside my head. Max pressed against me so firmly I could feel each deep breath he took. In that moment, I hated how much I needed him. I hated how my hands shook so badly I couldn't even hold my phone to call someone. I hated how no one else knew, not my friends, not my boss, not my mother whose voicemail I kept ignoring, just him, my guardian, my shadow, my wordless witness. Minutes crawled past. Or hours, it was impossible to tell. My feverish mind spun in broken loops. I should call someone. What if I pass out? What if I don't wake up? What if Max can't help me this time? But every time panic threatened to pull me under, Max was there. He pressed his nose to my cheek, then my neck, huffing small clouds of warm breath that anchored me more than anything else could. I grabbed a fistful of his fur. It felt like grabbing a lifeline. He didn't flinch. If anything, he leaned in harder, bracing me like he knew I might fall through the floor if he let go. At some point, I must have drifted. Fever dreams danced behind my eyelids, flashes of myself alone in rooms full of shadows, doors that locked behind me, echoes of a voice that whispered you're on your own, and always, just before the dream swallowed me whole, a shape broke through, warm, soft, heavy against my side. A stare that burned brighter than any nightmare. When I woke, it was to the sound of my own ragged breathing and the weight of Max's head on my thigh. I reached for my phone, fingers fumbling over the glass. 3 missed calls from Grace. 1. From my mom. The clock glowed 3:42 a.m. Max lifted his head when I moved, ears flicking forward, eyes locked on mine like he was scanning me for damage. I'm okay, I rasped. The lie felt weaker than ever. He didn't buy it. He never does. I thought about calling someone, an ambulance, Grace, anyone. But my body was calmer now. The wave had passed. The fever still lingered, but the sharp edge of fear had dulled to a manageable hum, all because of him. I dragged myself upright, bracing on the sink. My face was blotchy and pale under the harsh bathroom light. Max's reflection stood behind me, bigger than I ever remember him looking. A guardian beast in a tired old apartment. Come on, big man, I whispered, voice thick with gratitude I didn't know how to voice. Bedtime. For real this time. I shuffled to my room, Max glued to my side so close I tripped over him twice. Each time, he stopped, sat, stared, like asking, you good? Want me to carry you? I collapsed onto my bed without even pulling back the covers. Max hopped up, ignoring every rule he's ever obeyed. He curled himself into the curve of my body, his back against my chest, his head tucked under my chin. I buried my face in his fur. Damp from my sweat, warm from his heartbeat, familiar as my own breath. Don't ever leave me, okay? I whispered into the soft wave of his ear. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His steady breaths told me everything. I was here before. You broke. I'm here now. And I'll be here when you wake up. That night, I didn't dream of locked doors. Or shadows. Or being alone. I dreamed of Max, his stare, his silence, his impossible, unwavering I'm here. And for the first time in weeks, sleep felt less like an escape, and more like a promise I'd wake up to find the world waiting for me. With him. Watching. I wish I could say everything changed overnight. That I woke up the morning after that fever-drenched nightmare and magically knew how to fix my life, my loneliness, my restless mind, but life doesn't work that way. Healing is slower. Quieter. Sometimes you don't even notice it happening, until you look back and realize the shadows aren't quite as dark anymore. For me, it started with Max. Or maybe it always was Max, and I was just too busy pretending. I didn't need saving to see him for what he really was. After that night, I started leaving the bathroom door wide open. It sounds silly, but somehow, it felt right, like a wordless pact between us. No more hiding. If I cried, he was there. If I laughed too hard at a dumb video and snorted tea through my nose, he was there too, staring at me like the world's most patient witness to my daily nonsense. I think I used to believe he stared because he needed me. But the truth, and it took me far too long to admit it, is that I was the one who needed him. One Thursday, a few weeks later, Grace finally forced herself into my apartment after weeks of ignored invitations. She came armed with takeout and that particular brand of gentle nosiness only best friends can get away with. She pushed open the bathroom door while I was brushing my teeth, Max sitting predictably at my feet, and burst out laughing so hard she nearly dropped her spring rolls. Oh my God, Sarah. Is he still your shower chaperone? I spat toothpaste into the sink and glared at her reflection in the mirror. Not funny. She waggled a chopstick at Max. And you, sir. R.A. Stage 5 clinger. Max didn't care. He thumped his tail against the floor twice, eyes locked on me. Grace leaned against the doorframe, taking in the scene, me in pajama pants, toothpaste on my chin, a loyal Labrador posted up like a furry bouncer to my vulnerable humanity. Seriously, though. Does he ever give you a break? She asked, her voice softer now. I met her eyes in the mirror. The old me would have joked. Would have shrugged it off. But something about that night, the fever, the fear, the way Max had braced me against the sink when my body failed, had scraped the sarcasm out of me. No, I said. My voice came out small but steady. And honestly? I hope he never does. Grace didn't laugh this time. She just nodded and slipped away to the kitchen, leaving me with the quiet hum of the bathroom fan and Max's gentle stare. It was in that silence I realized, his stare was never about me being weak. It was about reminding me I didn't have to be strong all the time. After Grace left that night, after we ate greasy noodles on the couch and talked about everything except the thing she really wanted to ask me, I lay awake in bed with Max curled along my side. My fingers idly traced the soft fur behind his ear, the spot that always made his back leg twitch. I thought about every bathroom door I'd closed. Not just the real one, but the ones inside my head, the locked rooms full of secrets I told myself were mine to carry alone. Max had never knocked. He just walked through them, sat down, and stared until I let him see the mess I hid behind the steam and the toothpaste smiles. That night, for the first time in a long time, I cracked my window open before bed. Let the city breathe into my tiny apartment. Let myself feel the cold air on my face. Max shifted beside me, half asleep but alert enough to lift his head and nose the back of my hand. Hey, big man, I whispered into the darkness. You wanna know a secret? He didn't move. Just waited, I think. I think you might have saved me. A low sigh from his chest. The quiet thump of his tail against my shin. Yeah, I know. Don't get cocky about it. He huffed a soft laugh. I swear that's what it sounded like, then rested his head on my knee. I closed my eyes, the window cracked just enough to hear the city murmur. Somewhere far below, a siren wailed and faded into the distance. Somewhere deeper inside me, something uncoiled. Something that hadn't felt safe enough to breathe for a long time. I wish I could tell you I found all the answers after that. That I quit my soul-sucking job, found perfect balance, called my mom back and said all the right words, but the truth is, I didn't. Not immediately. Some mornings, the old fear still curls in my ribs. Some nights, I still sit on the bathroom floor just to feel small enough to manage myself. But every single time, Max is there. Paws on the tiles. Warm breath against my cheek. That stare. 1 month after the worst night, I did something small but huge. I left the bathroom door open and picked up my phone while I brushed my teeth. I called my mother. We didn't fix everything in one call. But it was a start. A sliver of light through a crack I'd sealed shut for too long. Last week, I caught Max sitting alone in the bathroom when I walked past with a basket of laundry, door wide open. Empty room. Just him, staring at the faucet. I leaned in the doorway, arms full of towels. What are you doing, weirdo? He turned his head slowly, as if he'd been caught on a top-secret stakeout. His eyes said it all, just making sure that I dropped the towels and sank to my knees beside him, laughing so hard I scared him into a sneeze. Okay, Inspector. You win. No shower monsters. Not today. I buried my face in his fur, breathing him in, home, loyalty, forgiveness. All the things I'd been too proud to admit I needed. Tonight, as I write this, sitting cross-legged on my bed with Max's head heavy in my lap, I keep glancing toward the bathroom door. It's wide open. It's been open for weeks now, and every time I catch myself drifting back to that place where the shadows press too close, where my thoughts hiss. You're alone. All I have to do is look down. There he is. Staring, reminding me, in his perfect, silent way, I see you. I'm here. And I'm not leaving. Sometimes people ask me why I never shut the door anymore. I tell them the truth, I don't need to. I have Max, and some doors, the ones inside you, they're meant to stay open when someone loves you enough to guard what's on the other side. The end.